Well, good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of Eastleigh Borough Council's Cabinet, which is being broadcast on Microsoft Teams. For anyone watching this evening's meeting, if there are any technical glitches along the way, it's probably my fault, but it might just be a line dropping somewhere. In the event of this thing going totally wrong, I'm going to ask Ian Corbin to step in and take over from me. We'll see what happens if that happens, but hopefully it won't, for everyone's sake, not least Ian's, I suspect. Anyhow, my name is Keith House, I'm Chair of the Cabinet, and this evening we have a packed agenda, which we will dispense some business with some haste, I suspect, to make sure we concentrate on the areas of most interest, because a lot of our business at these meetings is fairly routine. That doesn't make it any less important. I've got no notice of public participation on this meeting, but I do know that Councillor Margaret Atkinson wants to speak in the exempt business session, and Councillor Judith Korewski from the Conservative Group also wants to speak on item 10 on the Solent LEP Freeport bid. All that is for later. We'll kick off with apologies which we have from Councillor Paul Bicknell. Are there any declarations of interest? Nope, no one's indicating any at this stage. That's fine. We'll move to the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 10th of December, which is here to note.
Sorry, Chair, you have Tina.
I've got Tina indicating to speak. Yeah, okay, so let's Tina, let's pull you in.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to declare an interest in item 10, and just to say, as Chair of ELAC, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to take part in that item. Thank you very
much, Tina. That's all fine, totally understood. For anyone watching this and doesn't understand what that was all about, the item on the Freeport bid does make reference to the future of Southampton International Airport, and all of the council's Eastleigh Local Area Committee councillors will be determining a planning application on the airport in a few weeks' time, and therefore it's really important that they don't give any hint of having predetermined the application. It's therefore sensible for those members not to take part in the debate. I'm sure that if Councillor Paul Bicknell had been here, he would be saying the same thing as Councillor Tina Campbell. So thank you for that, Tina. So we were at the minutes, and I was just checking whether everyone were happy to agree those. I'll just take a verbal yay.
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much.
Agreed.
That's clearly carried. Item 5 on the agenda is recommendations from other panels, and I've got Councillor Rupert Curl wanting to speak. Rupert, you'll need to turn your camera on first before I can bring you to the front of the screen. And so, Rupert.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. It was just about the minutes. Sorry, it was just went a bit quick before I could speak. I know they've been passed now already, but the thing is, it just says in the minutes that I lost connection and therefore couldn't take part or something or other. I don't remember losing connection at that part of the meeting, but maybe I did, but I don't remember that.
Okay, I don't remember that either, for that matter. But there we go. We'll have to think about that. Are colleagues happy that if it turns out to be inaccurate, we can amend it? I'm sure that we are. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. So we're taking recommendations from other committees and panels, and we have recommendations in front of us from the Policy and Performance Scrutiny panel. The first is a recommendation around annual customer compliments and complaints, where the panel asks us to the target for complaints handled outside of the service level agreement should gradually be reduced from 25%. And then 2 comments on the enforcement performance report, which is the details of cases of proactive monitoring for community benefits to be included in quarterly performance reporting, and ensuring local area committee and ward councillors have the opportunity to feed into the lessons learned on major developments. Those recommendations all seem very sensible and helpful, and if colleagues are happy with them, we'll ask staff to work through how to deal with the issue on targets for complaints, and our enforcement team to report back in the way that's been outlined. Again, are colleagues happy that we do that?
Happy to do that.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's good. We can move to agenda item 6, which is the budget report. Now, the tradition, for those who aren't familiar with this, is that we just simply refer the budget to council. Council is on Thursday of this week, so if colleagues are simply happy that we do that, we can move forward without debate on that item. Colleagues happy to do so?
Yes.
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you very much. That moves us on to the next item, which is a package which has already been looked at by the Policy Informant Scrutiny Panel, and thank you to Richard Gomer for taking that discussion through that panel, which is that the Council reopens housing revenue accounts. And that might sound a very techie nerdy thing, but what it means is that it gives the Council the ability to run a separate set of accounts to manage traditional style council housing. And to develop such housing product and make it available to residents, and including the ability to do so at the old style social rents, not just at affordable rents. And the reason for doing this is because the council has been very active in housing development in recent years, because we recognise there really is a housing crisis in this country. And in doing so, we have gradually started to acquire more stock ourselves or through partnership arrangements. The vast majority of that so far has been market rental stock, where we have created a new product of lifetime tenancies for market rental properties, including an ability of moving towards home purchase for those homes too. We think that's still unique in the country. Certainly, I'm not aware of any other council that's managed to do that. But with major projects coming forward over the next few years, it was felt there was the opportunity to reopen the ability to develop and own our own social stock. That will also give us the ability to manage that stock alongside market rental property and as part of wider estate management. For example, at 1 Horton Heath, where we will see over 800 new affordable homes and social rented homes come forward over the course of the next decade or so, subject to planning approval being agreed in due course, and in addition to market rental stock and open market sale. So there's a technical paper in front of members this evening, which goes through the process of opening a housing revenue account. We last had one of these back in the mid-1990s before we transferred the existing stock at that time to what was at that point called East Housing Association. Is now part of the Vivid Group. In the meantime, it was called Atlantic and First Wessex. I don't know why housing associations change their names so often, but there we go. So that's the package that's in front of the council. It will give us probably almost certainly one of the biggest development programs for council housing in the country over the next few years, and meet a real need for affordable and social rented properties going forward over the next decade or so, and be a real asset to our borough. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? Not see. Yes, we do. Tonya, you need to switch your camera on. Tonya Craig.
Thank you, Chair. I really welcome this. It's one of the biggest issues around casework that I see, is people trying to access accommodation for them and their family. And I think, as far back as 2003, I think I had the first person in front of me where families are split living in 2 different households because they just cannot find accommodation. I also think over the next few years, with the pandemic that we've had, people will be losing their properties because they've not been able to pay mortgages and have taken mortgage payment holidays. We are going to be looking at more people seeking affordable housing. So I really welcome this on there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tonya. Yes, that's absolutely right. I totally agree with everything that's been said there. Anyone else wish to speak on this one? No. OK, well, there's a formal process to go through. We have to write to the Secretary of State declaring our intention to open a housing revenue account. That should be a tick box exercise that can be completed just as fast as the Secretary of State can get out his pen and sign the letter or whatever it is he needs to sign, and onwards we go from there. Can I just get a verbal assent from colleagues to this recommendations, because this is probably the most significant new item on this agenda this evening.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Take that as agreed. Item 8 then is the Capital Investment and Treasury Management Strategy. This is a paper which comes to this meeting every time at this time of year alongside the budget. Most of the contents are routine and colleagues will be aware of them. Does anyone wish to speak on this paper? No one's indicating at the moment. I'd like to thank Andy Smith and Sarah King and the team for all the work that's gone into these papers. It's basically getting the governance right behind a lot of what we do, so it really is important. It may seem quite technical most of the time, but it's stuff that matters. So colleagues, happy we agree these recommendations.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Next item then is Community Investment Programme approval, where we're asked to approve expenditure for £140,000 over the next 5 years for new waste bins. So it comes before us from time to time. It's not because people are trashing their bins, it's because some of them are beginning to wear out, because some of them have been around for 20 years now. And also we have new properties coming on stream alongside that too. Any debate on this item?
Yes, please.
Yeah. That was David, I think.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
You could switch your camera on.
I have switched on, I think. Yeah. Quite happy with the fact that we're purchasing the stuff because that's needed. But the thing that concerns me a little bit is doesn't necessarily seem appropriate as far as I'm concerned. I have mentioned this in years gone by, so it won't become as anything new. It is that use of borrowing to fund wheelie bins. That just doesn't seem to me to be quite the thing. Yes, it's fine to use borrowing to buy 20 acres to mitigate nitrates and buy a warehouse somewhere as part of our property programme, that type of thing. But buying wheelie bins doesn't seem to be the right type of investment, to me anyway, for using borrowing for. And I would have hoped to have seen that money coming perhaps from income through direct services, commercial income from there, or from actually most of it should be put onto the price of the house in the first place, or the rents of the houses, and work through with the developers, I think, rather than having borrowing.
Okay, David,
I accept.
Okay, David, if I can refer you to paragraph 6 of the report, you'll see that over half of the cost of these bins does come from developers. So what we're doing here is topping up, particularly around the replacement items. So the actual programme is £700,000 over the course of the next 5 years, and this is the approach we've used before. It's capital expenditure. Capital expenditure can be properly paid for across the lifetime of the item, and that's the proposal here. It doesn't really make a great deal of difference in the round, but it fits with the council's capital strategy. Tonya, I got your hand up to speak on this one too.
It's just a quick question from myself, Chair, is we're putting new bins in some places. Walking around the borough, households tend to have more than one black bin. Just wondering what we're doing about trying to collect some of those bins in. I do have one that I passed today that have 3 black bins in quite a small house, so that was just my question on that one. What we're doing to collect those bins, and can they be recycled, cleaned and reused at a different house? Yeah,
no, thank you. That's a good question, Tonya. And I see exactly the same things you do walking around the borough. And sometimes there's a justification for those extra bins being there, but often as not, it's bins that have accrued from previous owners. We do have a programme that was put on the back burner as a result of the pandemic in 2020 to go back and do a trawl of these excess bins so that they can be reclaimed and hopefully in the vast majority of cases reused for other properties. So you're very right to point that out, and I'm sure when we have the ability to do more of these things as a matter of routine again, we'll be back on that programme. Rupert wanted to speak, and again, Rupert, you need to put your camera on, my friend, because otherwise I can't see you and I can't put you live.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a bit of a moot point. Actually, you completely covered everything I was about to say. Actually, was just to answer that question which Councillor Craig put forward there. But you're quite right. There certainly was a programme, in fact, actually, to be able to look at this, where properties either have accumulated bins over time, just to actually undertake an audit, in effect, really to better understand. Because obviously, clearly, what we want to do is minimise black bin waste, also minimise waste across the board at all, totally, but also increase recycling as well. So. Yes, that piece of work was put on hold because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and obviously clearly when we are able to revisit that, then clearly we will do as part of our complete waste service review, as you know, to make sure that actually each property does have the correct prescribed collection of bins that they are supposed to have. And yes, we do recycle them. They're recycled onto allotments where they can be, because they can be used for water butts, those sorts of things, and obviously clearly recycled fully back into making more bins, obviously, if they are beyond repair. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rupert. I'm just relieved that I got it right, really, which is kind of handy. But there we go. So thank you for that. That's good. Right. I've got no one else indicating they want to speak other than the good news notes in chat from Tonya. And yeah, we actually had started the work, but it's got a long way to go. So we will certainly be aiming to keep on top of that just as soon as we can. Now then, let's move on to the next item, which is the Solent LEP Freeport bid. And Derek Pretty, I'm going to invite to speak on this one. And I've got a note for Judith to speak as well. So, Derek, the floor's yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to support the recommendations contained in the report. In these sort of cases, it's always difficult to strike a balance between the demands of the economy and the environment. But clearly, we need to be aware that the growth of the economy leads us to be able to fund climate change as we would wish. The government has invited submissions from across the UK for the creation of free ports. It's anticipated that there will only be 10 selected for further development, with only probably 7 in England. The intention of free ports is for 6 key outcomes: trade, investment, regeneration, levelling up between areas of greater social deprivation, and creation of innovation opportunities. I believe Eastleigh could benefit from all of these outcomes. The Solent LEP submission will see custom and tax areas along the Solent, which will benefit from various tax and investment benefits to encourage growth of local economies, which could include greater emphasis on developing technologies to aid our aims of reducing carbon emissions. I believe the proposal is in line with the aims of the local plan to support economic growth, to work with the airport to see a prosperous and sustainable business plan, to see the commercial development of the Riverside and North East Business Park, and finally to be part of the bypass to the town centre. If successful, I think the establishment of a free port could contribute to the borough as a prosperous place, to the residents' health and well-being, and also to our long-term climate aims. And I really recommend the agreement of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Derek. I've got Judith Grafsky to speak next on behalf of the Conservative Group, and then I'm going to go straight from Judith to David Airy and then to Ian Corbin. So, Judith.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. Just a few comments, because I hadn't seen the paper. The 2 supplementary agendas on the ModGov are the same one. Apparently, you can only read this on the public website. So I'll just mention that from the housekeeping point of view. But I suppose I should declare an interest as a board member at the Solent LEP, and obviously I've been following the putting together of the bid very closely at meetings. I heard this week that actually there may be 10, more than 10 UK sites. Who knows? But I very much hope that the Solent bid is going to be right up there at the top, because we have, I think it ticks all of the boxes as a bid. I would say that, wouldn't I? But we are pretty uniquely positioned in the country with 2 ports and an airport, and I hope we still have an airport. I think that as aircraft become cleaner, jet zero, hydrogen planes, I think regional airports are really going to come into their own, and that's my personal view. It's great to see that there's going to be an increase in jobs, particularly jobs for people in deprived areas. And I'd just like to refer to paragraph 9 in the report. It says one aspect of the criteria the government will use to assess the bid will be the extent that it meets their policy objective of levelling up economic regions, and refers to the North and the Midlands. Well, of course, a lot of the areas in the Midlands are reliant on the Port of Southampton, so it will help levelling up there. And we also have quite a lot of levelling up to do across our own region, and reduce inequalities here. So I think it's hugely important. I think it's a hugely exciting opportunity for the region, and also for Eastleigh, if it opens up, that helps to open up that area south of the railway. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Judith. That was almost spoken like a true Liberal. But thanks for the declaration of interest. I'd forgotten you were part of the LEP board, which is very remiss of me. But I should also have noted when we got to the item that Tina declared an interest on this item because of being a member of the Eastleigh Local Area Committee. So just to put that on record again very clearly for the minutes. And of course, the levelling up issue very much does apply to South Hampshire, because South Hampshire's economy as we all know, is actually more typical of England as a whole. It's not part of the prosperous southeast economy in so many ways, in terms of deprivation levels and almost everything along those areas. So David Airy next.
Right, thank you. Well, following on from where Judith left off, to start with, on this levelling up issue, when I attended the stakeholder conference of GTR Railway virtually a week or so ago, the rail minister did say that levelling up was covered all areas where there was poor economic performance, and not just areas in the north and Midlands, and clearly recognised that other parts of the country have got some areas of significant economic problems that need assistance as well, which was good news. And I think on the good news side of this, it's really good to see the level of cooperation and partnership working between the LEP, between the county, the unitary and district councils. That, and as if ever there was a time that needed that level of partnership working, it's now, as we need to map our way out of the economic misery that the COVID virus has dumped upon us. The proposals too, if they're accepted, will help the UK PLC as we reposition ourselves following Brexit as well, and I think that's an important point that shouldn't be forgotten. Location, if we look more at the sites and so on themselves, locations such as the Northern Business Park, as it was traditionally called, regeneration of parts of the former railway works and Network Rail land have been sort of objectives of ours for, and so on for a number of years. So it will be really good to see some of those locations coming forward for regeneration and for new business opportunities and so on, and employment opportunities. Many, of course, have seen other free ports in other parts of the, Europe and so on, and seen the benefits that they have brought forward in terms of employment, and I think that's going to be really important in our area, as well as looking at areas, opportunities, for example, to reopen the waterside railway to passenger traffic. We've got Eastleigh perhaps well placed as a transport hub and location, and particularly the opportunity with using Network Rail land and land which is in the railway works, which has already got sidings and so on, needing upgrading clearly, but the opportunity there is for getting freight on rail as opposed to just hauling it up the motorway to the Midlands, which will be a really good thing if we can get more of that going. The airport, and I agree with the words Judith has used about the airport very much, but at the airport and where airports are, they've always traditionally been a hub and boost for local economies, and we want to see Southampton continue in that way. Finally, I think we need to say too, we're having hundreds and hundreds of houses, and we've already been talking about that this evening, being built in our area in the coming years, and we've got to find locations for people to work. Not everybody's going to be able to be sat at home behind a screen like we are this evening, but we need to be able to have local employment that's not too far away from these new estates, and this Freeport idea also gives impetus for getting that level of employment into the area where housing's being built, just as government wants to see housing being built. I understand the environmental objections that some people may have, but I think at the present time, to me, we can't have improved environment without growth in the economy to ensure people have got jobs to go to and so on. It's a difficult balance, but at the moment I think the tipping is just on the side of the economic one. Thanks.
Thank you very much, David. Let's go straight to Ian Corbin, and then I'll call Rupert Curl next.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm just tempted to say I agree with everything David has just said, but I won't. I will say a little bit more. I think this is a really important paper and a really important exercise that we're going through, and I really hope it is successful, and I hope wish the bid team a great success with the LEP taking this forward. If we were looking to actually put this together, I suspect we probably couldn't find a better place. We've spoken already about what we see here from an infrastructure point of view, and it really goes hand in hand with what's been said earlier. You know, this is a great place to live. Lots and lots of transport infrastructure, which is here clearly wider outside of the borough with the ports, but also the road network that comes through as well. So other than the fact we may not be sufficiently north or sufficiently in the Midlands, I do hope that the points made earlier are taken into account, because we are very much a gateway here, and the benefits to Eastleigh and the surrounding areas are absolutely huge, but also the benefits wider to us as well. So very happy to support this. I hope, looking at the papers, this is something which can move forward quickly. Lots of businesses are struggling with Brexit, delays as much as anything, and it'd be really important. David mentioned about improving to put this in place to help Brexit. The infrastructure as well needs to come with it, to make sure that as a whole we don't just talk about investing, but we talk about process as well. So really important. Lots of brilliant ideas here. Very happy to support it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ian. And I'll go to Rupert Curl next, and then I'll ask Derek Pritchett if he wants to sum up at all after Rupert.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. Under item 18, point 18, sorry, it talks about climate change and environmental implications. It says the current proposals do not lead to an increase in greenhouse gas CO2 or damage the ecology of the environment. Well, I find that very hard to believe, to be honest, given the fact that clearly what is being proposed will have an impact on the environment and will have an impact on ecology, however small or medium or large that will be. I totally agree with the points that have been raised by David and also by Ian. It is a careful balance, but it shouldn't be a one or the other with regards to economy or environment. It should be together. And this is the whole point about the climate change and environment emergency, given the fact that we do understand there does need to be some more homes. We do understand there needs to be infrastructure improvements. We do understand there needs to be improvements to our economy or economic performance. Sorry, totally agree with the levelling up as well, and the fact that more money should be being spent sort of in our local region or the wider region, given that there are areas of social deprivation and increasingly such, in fact, actually, and clearly do agree with that point. However, as you would not expect me, as you'd expect me not to say, or to say rather, that actually the environment is incredibly important as well, given that if we are going to have more traffic in effect going through, and I'm talking about freight by sea, etc. There are clearly very sensitive areas in the Solent catchment area, which clearly we are probably aware of. The fact that wildlife actually uses our strategic location as a place of preference to actually nest, to come and breed, and to come and feed and forage and everything else as well, and migrate as well. So not only is it our own indigenous wildlife, but there is other wildlife that comes in from further afield, abroad, and so we do, I think, have to be mindful of our environmental responsibilities as well, whilst also totally understanding the fact that we need to put forward a very strong bid, which I know we have, to try and see whether we can be the preferred option. But I would hope that the environment is very, very much up there as one of the top priorities to protect into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rupert. Now, we don't often in these meetings feel the need to ask staff to comment on papers they've written, but there's a direct question from you there, Rupert, to the report author on paragraph 18 on greenhouse gases and CO2. So I'm going to ask the report author, Nick Tustian, to comment on that paragraph. Thank you. Yeah,
thank you, Chair. And Councillor Clow raises a very important issue. I suppose I'm a little bit sorry because I wish we could put more in the report. As Councillor House and Councillor Pretty will know, a lot of the detail of the bid is embargoed, including the other two sites, which is really disappointing, because I think when you see the size of the bid and the area that's encompassing, the sites that encompasses, I think it really will start to take on a sense of how large it is. Now, I'm no expert in this, but I do know that the one of the really big points that's being made about this bid is that it is planned to be a net zero bid. So yes, Councillor Curry, you're absolutely right that there will perhaps be areas where there will be an increase, but overall it will be a net zero bid. There will actually be no increase in greenhouse gases, and that they believe, the LEP believe, it will make it the only bid, Freeport bid, that is net zero. So I hope that it answers your concern. I can't tell you anymore because I don't know the detail. I'm afraid I can't reveal it. But as that comes out, I think there'll be two things that the bid will major on. One of which is its levelling up agenda, which has already been discussed. This message that actually levelling up is not about just the Midlands and the North. The areas about GVA and gross domestic product in the South is just as needy, and therefore that levelling up needs to apply to the South as well. But also, one of their real strong points is that it is a net zero bid in terms of the economy. So I hope you're absolutely right, Councillor Kerr. There shouldn't be one or the other. This actually encompasses both in terms of significant economic growth with £2 billion of investment, 50,000 jobs, and a net zero growth in terms of greenhouse gases in the environment. So I hope that at least whets your appetite enough that as this bid unfolds, as we see more of it, we'll see all the benefits, both in terms of the environment, but also the economy as well.
Thank you much, Nick. And of course, all that's done now is whetted all of our appetites. So we want to see the whole bid because we want to see what the other issues are, which can make the environmental gains, or at least the environmental neutrality, which is in itself quite a good move forward, considering that in general terms, when we see economic growth, we do see environmental impact. So if we have generally got to a point where we have a net zero position in terms of emissions across the bid as a whole, that really is really impressive. I've got no one else indicating they want to speak at the moment. I'm just going to ask Derek if he wants to say anything in summary on the bid, and then I'm going to ask Laura to do a roll call vote on this one, because I think we do need to be capable of being held to account on a major bid like this. So Derek.
Thank you, Keith. Yes, I think Nick's picked up the point about the green zero and net gain. It's very difficult to say a great deal because the Solent bid and government submissions were supposed to be kept fairly confidential. I think it's a very exciting opportunity here to see a Freeport in the Solent to level up our local communities, with those in the Midland and the North, would be really beneficial. We need to see greater creation of jobs and opportunities for people. We're creating homes and communities, but we definitely need to have somewhere for them to work. And I think it's essential that with the other local authorities that are supporting the Freeport bid, it would be rather short-sighted, recently, to walk away from it. This is an opportunity to achieve a great deal in our borough. I understand that the submissions are being considered at the moment. Hopefully we'll hear somewhere around about the time of the budget, and those successful bids, probably 7, maybe 8 in England, will then receive government funding to develop the scheme further, and that's when we will have the real conversations with all colleagues over how the Freeport would be run, what the impacts on the economy, the environment. There's such a lot of things to consider, but I think overall it would make Eastleigh a better place to be part of this Freeport scheme. I really do. I think it's an opportunity that we cannot miss. So that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Derek. Good, useful debate on that, colleagues. Thank you for that. I think it's all been said as far as I'm concerned. I'm very pleased to support this package. We do know that economic growth is going to be really important as we emerge from the pandemic, because the devastation that's being done to a lot of sectors of the economy is going to take a very long time to recover from. But as Rupert said, and others have agreed, we've got to make sure we get the environmental gains alongside economic growth to happen at the same time, and that will fit with our wider aims around social policy and health policy too in the long term. So I'm going to go for a roll call vote on this simply because I want it to be clear to the outside world that the Cabinet is backing this bid. It's pretty clear from what's been said so far they are. We'll find out now. Laura, can you just go through the names, please?
Of course, Chair. Councillor Airy.
Strongly support.
Councillor Corbin.
Strongly support.
Councillor Craig.
Support.
Councillor House.
Support, strongly.
Councillor Cowell.
Support.
Councillor Pretty.
Definitely strongly support.
That's it, unanimous from all the councillors that can take part, Chair.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Laura. And just again, for the record, Tina Campbell's here, but couldn't contribute, quite rightly couldn't contribute because of the bid's potential relationship to the future of the airport. Right, now let's go to agenda item 10A, which is the response to Hampshire County Council's local transport consultation. And I'm going to ask David Eyre if he wants to say anything in introduction to this one.
Oh, thank you. Yes, please. I was just about to scribble in. I wanted to speak. I was rather disappointed with this, actually. This consultation, it seems to be very cautious in its approach and questioning, and sort of lacking ambition. It seems to, as one reads through it and the questions to it, it seems to omit the importance of partnership working, which is especially important, I think, for districts like Eastleigh, and for ourselves, the fact there's all the transport linkages going through to the city and beyond and to the wider world, whether it's by road, rail or sea or air, all centre on Eastleigh and travel through our boundaries. So I think you know, one was really looking for something that's a bit more ambitious. It raises, looking at some of the things very briefly, it sort of raises the spectre of demand responsive type bus services for some areas, but it doesn't build on the knowledge gained from the present demand responsive services, which have mixed success, cost a lot of money, and don't always attract people other than one or two groups of passengers to use them. So they're not really as good an alternative as perhaps some places, some people may think. It seeks to establish a more influential role in planning, and yet our Hamble Lane experience shows that the county council don't actually make enough of the powers they already have. What one takes us back to the planning application for the houses opposite Tesco's. They didn't object to that at all, and yet had they objected or had taken a more active role using the powers they already have, we could have had the top end of Hamble Lane all sorted out and built by the builders that built the houses, and the job done and ticked off, but we haven't, and we're nowhere very little further ahead. There's no clear bus strategy, there's no mention of ferries in there, or aviation or rail, or very minimal mention of any of those things, which I think is rather strange and odd. So as I say, I want to work with Hampshire County Council. I want an ambitious programme to work with, and not one that's sort of promoting little more than continuing along the same groove. So I'm really disappointed with this, but there we go. We have to comment on what we're given.
Okay. Thank you very much, David. Now, I sense there's a little bit of a language dispute here between Eastleigh and Hampshire. So I have one of the council's cabinet members who happens to be present in the room, who can make some contributions on that language issue. Judith.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is not a consultation. This is pre-consultation. You know, we have consultations. Eastleigh do consultations, Hampshire do consultations, and there are some people who will turn around and say, "Oh, well, they say it's a consultation, it's a done deal." Well, you know, it isn't a consultation. It is trying to get ideas before we actually come up with the plan, which can then be consulted on in the summer. So the detailed plan and the consultation, David, comes later. This is pre-consultation. I just wanted to make the distinction there. Thank you.
Well, we'll amend it to talk about pre-consultation then, yeah. Judith, and hopefully we can all go away seemingly happy on that point. Although we may end up disagreeing about whether the pre-consultation is ambitious enough to take up David's point. But Rupert, I'll ask you to come in next on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just wanted to add on to what David was saying, really, to be honest with you, and whether it's consultation or pre-consultation, I've got my marker pen out and I've written pre dash in front of the consultation bit on the report. Hopefully I'll be able to get it off later. But yeah, no, it is actually about ambition, to be honest with you. And actually, when I was reading this earlier, I was actually, I don't know, perhaps I got a bit sort of report weary or something, I don't know, but I was trawling through the options, and if there was not very much budget or not very much money, what would you prefer to do, picking out the options that you'd have and all this kind of stuff. And I just think it needs to be far more ambitious. There needs to be, if we're genuinely serious about wanting to get cars off the road, we want to get more people using sustainable levels of transport, whether it be buses or rail, ferries, walking, cycling, all those sorts of things, then we genuinely need to have a sort of transport revolution in effect, really. And then you need to set out a vision, you need to set out an ambition, and you need to set out a timetable for delivery. I'm sorry this isn't a consultation, because clearly I'm now putting those comments to a consultation response, but the point being that there should be a lot more about cycling, there should be a lot more about getting people out of cars, a lot more about people being able to move around easily within their communities without having to jump in a car, all that kind of stuff, far more about sustainable transport modes, and there just didn't seem to be that for me in this, I'm afraid. So I was actually a bit disappointed. And if after the responses they then come out with whatever options are going to go within the consultation, my worry is it's going to be even worse, because actually it will be even more watered down. It's not even going to actually be, it's not even going to be even more ambitious in effect, it's going to be less ambitious. So actually I'm full of a bit of trepidation there, really, to be honest with you, because I don't think we're making progress at all in this. I think we need to be far more ambitious. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you much, Rupert. One of the few things that I've found satisfying about the lockdowns is that I can manage to go 2 months without filling my car with petrol, as opposed to 5 days, and that I can attend London meetings without having to go to London, which is a boon to me in every sense of the word. And I'm even prepared to miss the social nature of meetings to have that environmental gain and time gain for work-life balance. So ambition really does matter in a lot of these things. So I agree very much, Rupert, with your comments, and David, your comments too. I've got no one else identify themselves as wishing to speak at this moment on this pre-consultation. I would note, however, that most of the county council consultations and pre-consultations tend to be written in such a way that however you answer them, you're forced to give the answers that the county council wants, which is why the Hampshire population seems to like cuts in services and libraries being closed and tips being reduced their hours, and on and on and on. But never mind. Right, so we have, I think we're agreeing this pre-consultation response. Are we happy to agree, colleagues? Yes.
Happy to agree.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, and Judith even put a link up in chat for anyone who wants to read more details in the background later. So thank you for that, Judith. Right, good. That concludes the public part of this meeting. For those of you who are viewing this meeting, just to let you know, we have a number of items that are commercially sensitive that we have to deal with in exempt business. One of the reasons the Solent LEP paper came out late was because we concluded actually a good chunk of it could be put in the public domain. We'd much rather publish papers if we can, but as Nick Tustian said, our Chief Executive said, there are some parts of it that we simply couldn't put in the public domain without breaking confidences that we had agreed not to do. So thank you very much for your attendance this evening, colleagues. For those of you who are coming along to the next meeting, I'll see you in a couple of moments. For everyone else, I wish you good night. Thank you.
Thank you.